again, the idea of moving on concrete is something I've done. I just feel like they should allow grown adults to assume the risk. It's like, you know what? They're wet. The concrete's wet. You're a freaking adult. You know what happens on wet concrete. We assume no liability or responsibility if you slip on but they're not. They're like, no. They're shut down. We're shutting them down.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Business Lunch Podcast with your hosts, me, Roland Frasier, and Ryan Deiss. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Exceptionally, awesomely amazing. And how about you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm wishing the rain would clear up a little bit so my courts would dry off and I can get into my my pickleball wonderfulness. But
why, by the way, I'm always, because my son played tennis, and I get it, it's slick, but it seems like in every other sport, it's a little bit wet. You know, they're like, go figure it out, go play. Tennis, it's like the slightest bit damp, and they're like, nobody do anything.
Yeah, the challenge with tennis is that it's a fuzzy, water absorptive ball that they could probably redesign to be playable. But also, I think it's very slick. They would have to resurface the courts so that you wouldn't, because you're running and stopping and sliding. And even on like a dry tennis court, if there's any kind of like sand or anything on it, you're going to slip. And water, I think, would be pretty tough. And then in pickleball, even though it's a wiffle ball, when the ball is wet, it definitely affects the bounce. And again, you've got slippage, issues.
I get it. I mean, I've walked on wet concrete. This is not a new concept.
Have you run and done really quick stops and starts and moved?
I have. Like, again, the idea of moving on concrete is something I've done. I just feel like they should allow grown adults to assume the risk. It's like, you know what? They're wet. The concrete's wet. You're a freaking adult. You know what happens on wet concrete. We assume no liability or responsibility if you slip on but they're not. They're like, no. They're shut down. We're shutting them down.
Yeah.
We're shutting them down.
The shutdown. I was actually surprised because when I called this morning, I wasn't thinking that they were closed. I was thinking that they were too wet to play. And when I asked, and she's like, they're the courts are closed currently. And I'm like,
closed.
What?
Like, I mean, I get it on like a golf course if they're overly wet because you can damage, you like actually cause it. But we're talking about concrete and moisture.
I think it's 100% liability focused. I really do.
I don't know. I think you got adults. I think let me sign something saying that I understand how wetness and concrete functions. Let me go give it hell. But anyway, that's just me. Me. What? Yeah. This is not the subject of our conversation, I'm guessing.
The subject of our conversation is going to be, but you know what? It is very authentic to Business Lunch because you don't just sit down and start talking business without catching up and asking how each other's doing and having some conversation about little things. So
this is true.
I think it's, so if you guys don't like that, if you don't like that part of our lunch, just skip, hit the fast forward button a couple times and you'll get to the other stuff.
We could be like other podcasts and have like 5 minutes of ads.
Yeah, right. What I would love to chat about today is I read an article kind of talking about Elon Musk and what he's doing at the Department of Governmental Efficiency, which I just find hilarious that it's Doge. And they were talking about him as, in particular, as kind of the flag bearer of a trending topic called high agency people. And that high agency, I think it was first mentioned by somebody on one of Tim Ferriss's podcasts, and it just really caught on. And so it's showing up in job forums and lists of things or qualities that hirers want, recruiters want from the people that they're hiring for jobs, and people that are getting promoted into positions, and questions for interviews. And so I thought that it would be fun for us to talk about what is this high agency trend? What do high agency people look, like? And how do we use that to help us in business? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And that's kind of, have you seen anything about high agency?
No. Define. I mean, I think I know what it means, but I don't know I know what it means. So define the term for me.
Yeah, it's a really good question because it's not terribly well defined, but it is generally somebody that takes charge, that does unconventional, outside the box things that's kind of a maverick firebrand, going their own path, everybody else, be damned. And, and, uh, just really moving outside of traditionally expected or even mandated behavior. And so, like, kind of Steve Jobs entrepreneur, I think it's the successor to disruptor is what it really
Okay.
is. Does that make
And,
sense?
and and the idea is you want these people to work for you? Because like I can see the benefit of being this person from an entrepreneurial perspective. It seems like having an entire team of them sounds a lot like a pirate ship to me. So
Yeah,
is
it could
there
be.
what's kind of your
But
thoughts
at the
on that?
same time, do you want do you want a slave ship? Do you want a ship full of drones that are just functioning in their jobs, looking at their job description and saying, yep, that's on the list, I'm supposed to do that, no, that's not on the list, not looking for innovative opportunities, not thinking outside the box, not trying to think about, how do I make this better, why are we doing this, is this the right way to do things? So it's a like it's interesting to me because it's a balance, because it's nice to have somebody that questions everything, and it's nice to have somebody that just does what they're freaking told, right?
Right.
And be careful what you wish for, because yes, if you had a company of Elon Musk's, it would be chaos, and they'd all be leaving in a week anyway to start their own things. So I guess that's the question, is what really is it? I think is, we kind of know. What is the level of it that we want is probably the more difficult question, right? How do we measure it and say, I want to high five a high agency person? No, I'm just looking for a mid two agency. What is the scale that defines what we actually want for different jobs? Because I don't think you want high agency people in non-leadership roles, because you need leaders to lead and you need the followers to follow, and you want the followers to be intelligent and hopefully evolving and contributing, but you really don't want them taking giant risks. The thing that they referred to with Elon, and I thought this was actually cool, is it's like everybody laughed at him when he bought Twitter, and they're like, you're an idiot, you overpaid for that, it's all the advertisers are going to go away. I just saw an article saying that all the advertisers are coming back now, by the way. But now it's like, well, that put him in every headline and elevated his presence in the media more than, maybe more than a $40 billion spend could have made, maybe not, but certainly from a relevant standpoint. And then ultimately gets him to be besties with arguably the most powerful human on the planet as the president, in this unprecedentedly powerful position that 17 states just filed suit against Doge today, because they said it was an unconstitutional delegation of presidential powers. Like, that's pretty significant. And I honestly think he's going to turn that thing around and make money. And it doesn't suck to own what's arguably the most influential news platform, also on the planet. Like, I mean,
He also didn't spend 40 billion of his own money. People forget. He
yes,
raised
he
that
wrote a
capital.
check for $40 billion cash, Ryan. That's how that works. Yeah,
That's how this
that's
works.
an excellent point. Excellent point. I did also read that today there was a lot of separate publications and separate things, but the banks that funded 13 billion of the acquisition in debt, the article said that the debt was nuclear radioactive. Nobody would touch it. They couldn't peddle it off to anybody. And now I think JP Morgan bought in and now has upped from like 3.3 billion to 4.7 or something. And now the debt is very, very, very marketable and very, very wanted. And everybody wants it, not just because they believe in the company, but also they believe we should do things that help Elon Musk because we want to be closer to the guy that's close to the guy.
Yeah.
So he thinks outside the
Anyways.
box. Let's reinvent the way that rockets go into space and reuse them. Let's make electric cars that drive themselves. I mean, that guy is about as out there as you can think, and somehow has managed to succeed with all of it, as far as I can tell. So it's a pretty, I think it's a pretty good set of things to have, but you are taking a lot of risk when you are going way outside the box like that. So
Especially when the comparison is Elon Musk, because you're probably not hiring the next Elon Musk, and you're probably not the next Elon Musk. So I think you brought up an interesting point before, where I think the question that you asked is what degree, like on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the appropriate amount, right?
I
You
think
kind of
that's the
want,
magic. I think
like,
that's
what's the minimum, like, viable,
yeah.
kind of quantity of agency that gets you. And I think there's an aspect of it. What it may also be, is we need to add another, we basically need to add another layer to this. So if agency is existing on the x-axis, we may need to add a y that is judgment, right? And so can we also measure for people who have good versus bad judgment? Because give me somebody with really high agency, a 10 out of 10, but who's also a 10 out of 10 in terms of judgment, and I'm in it all day long.